Welcome to the Driving Forward podcast. It's Thursday, March 20th. Whether you're joining us live or listening on one of our 18 platforms, including Reese Across America Radio, where we broadcast every Tuesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Time, we appreciate your support. Next week, we're at Matt's. We'll be live Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 1 p.m. Central Time. We may go live a few other times. We'll be doing a lot of recordings outside of this as well, but we'll definitely be live at 1 o'clock Central Time. We're not sure with who, or we're not sure how long, but we'll be live with lots of people. And we'll be at our booth. Freight Movement actually has a booth at Matt's. It's booth 38601, and we've teamed up with our friends at Freight Ninja Parking Solutions and the Logistics Lounge for a really big space, a really lounge space, to be honest with you. Once again, the Freight Movement booth 38601. Swing by to chat, talk freight, and we'll see if we can get you on the air. We'll also be right next to a whole bunch of other friends as well. So it'll be a heck of a space to hang out if you're in the area. Freight Movement and Broker Carrier Summit also have the big road tour going on at Matt's Friday night, March 28th, following the concert from 9 p.m. to midnight. We're holding the event downtown Louisville at the Tavern on 4th. If you haven't been to one of our events yet, you don't know what you're missing. If you're a driver, broker, owner-operator, company owner, freight tech bro, it doesn't matter. We want to see you there. We'll put a sign up in the comments for this event, and we look forward to seeing everyone. The big road tour is just getting started. This is the second location out of 12 cities over 12 months. If you want to be a part of its reach out, we'd love to have you join as a sponsor or as an attendee. Following Matt's, April 3rd, we're excited to have Christy Knitchell on from Knitchell Logistics on the podcast. We've briefly had Christy on before at a Broker Carrier Summit in the past, but I'm happy to be able to chat about her story and her passions. Looking forward to having Christy on. We'll be at Broker Carrier Summit April 28th through May 2nd in Indianapolis. Check out Broker Carrier Summit at brokercarriersummit.com. At the Broker Carrier Summit, we're on a mission to transform relationships between carriers and brokers. Say goodbye to distrust and hello to mutually beneficial partnerships. We believe the key to this transformation lies in fostering open communication, enhancing education, and meaningful connections. For our discount ticket, use that code Freight Movement. Let's get on with the show. Bring in our crew, and we've got a show today for you all. Everybody's been kind of out and about at between TMC, TCA, and heck, I've been on vacation. So you guys have all the stories. I've got a few stories in color commentary. So happy to have everybody join today. Susan, you're the coordinator of it all. You've been at everything here, so why don't you kind of kick it off here?
Absolutely. Hey everyone, great to be here, fresh in from TCA last night, and before that TMC. Most of you guys know I'm based near Nashville, so while TMC was local to me, I've been running on empty between the two. And it's kind of funny. I was laughing as I was listening to Nate intro. We all really haven't talked a lot. I'm just now seeing Zach. We were together at TMC, but we really haven't spoken since. So I'm excited to get his feedback and everyone's feedback. It was such a whirlwind, but just kind of get together, share notes, highs, lows, all that good stuff. So this is a great time to do it. I guess maybe since I was at both, kind of default for me to kind of share some fresh impressions. I attended one, which was TMC. And then we exhibited at TCA, which has its own set of, unique opportunities having a booth. But then also, we had Mr. Bain with us. So we were also podcasting. So it was the triple threat. But I will say hands down with both of them, and I'm kind of blurring both of them together now. But the time in the sessions and in at breakfast and at the round tables was just invaluable. So time with our existing customers, some new prospect friends, our partner friends, that was just incredible. And at heart, GLCS is a services organization. We help people, we solve problems. And it was really cool to be able to do that live in action. We had a lot of people come up to us, asking us questions, asking where they go for certain things. And even though we can do most about anything, it was great to be able to say, you know what, we don't really need to reinvent the wheel here. Why don't you come over to so-and-so's booth with us? They already have that app or that thing that can do exactly what you want. But we don't let them go after that. And because we've got that awareness of that new piece of technology they're going to add to their tech stack, that's going to make it that much more impactful, or we're going to be more effective when we engage with them further on our side. So kind of selfishly, just being able to solve a problem or point them in the right direction while we were there was so rewarding. And then also I noticed a theme that kept coming up between both conferences, and it wasn't necessarily, kind of overtly on the agenda for either one, but this theme of how do the two kind of spectrums of the generations communicate? How do the boomers and the millennials communicate with each other? How do you attract the younger generation into trucking? How do you keep them once they're there? And then how do you groom them to take over the business? So the session could have been about, anything, maintenance, best practices, you name it, but everyone kept coming back to that. And the schools of thought are vastly different. And I can't wait to get into that, especially when we get to the TCA breakdown. I got a little bit more to say on that front, but that's kind of my high level on both of them.
I think that's a great recap. I mean, first off, setting us up on what we do, kind of being at the awareness and how much time we spend studying freight tech. That's and how much time it takes doing that, and how fast our industry has taken off, and not only the last 20 years, but the last 5 or 10 years, and that there isn't always an answer. I was just having this conversation with another team member this morning. There isn't always an answer, but sometimes, and many times, there is an answer, or there's a possibility, and to go explore that possibility with one of our partners. So that's awesome. So this is kind of your guys' show today. And I'll go into what I did later. So we don't need to occupy, sunshine and beaches quite yet. We'll come into that later. So
I mean, we had plenty of sunshine in Phoenix, I'm just gonna say.
Yeah, I'm sure. So but you didn't have yeah, fair enough. But you didn't have ocean and whales and I'm sure you had plenty of cocktails, so I guess you probably had that.
Cannot confirm or deny.
Yeah, fair enough. So let's go into TMC at kind of a little bit more deeper there, then kind of start off with the first conference last week.
Last year. So yeah, Zach and I were both there, and as I mentioned, we haven't gotten a chance to see him. When he pops up this screen, I remember what we spent a lot of time doing, because we've got a lot of friends around there, visited lots of other booths. But I found out later that Zach had a mission. Why don't you tell us about your little collection there, Zach?
Oh yeah, just expanding the collection. This is only about half of it. This was, well, not even half. This is probably just this year's haul so far.
Yeah.
I don't have to, but I choose to wear hats as much as possible. I can't pull off the look of Bain or Turner there, so I got to keep a hat on it.
I mean, really, who can? I'm just saying.
Right, no. I got the little starter kit going right now. But the hat collection, I've been doing that for conferences over the years. Just got a great collection. There was a lot of great vendors there, companies from all across the industry. You can see that's 32 Marmon. That is the first Indianapolis 500 car winner. So that is a little tribute to them. And they had the car on display.
I try to pull Zach up here. So if I can. So
there
we
we
go, Zach.
Yeah.
Now we can.
So the 32 Marmon, they've got a replica car on display. They said that is actually going to be in a movie that they're going to be releasing over the next year and a half or so. Just about the trip there to that first Indy 500. We've got, what we got? We got Uptake, we got Revanova, we've got Motive, got Uptake number 2, a few different series of Peterson hats. They're doing an annual hat. They release one every year, but the lady was kind enough, Missy, there to go ahead and run into the back and grab me the previous years. Of course, Alvis. Got, if I can turn the right way, Orange EV. They're doing a really cool EV Yard Dog. Shell was doing custom hats, so you got to pick your hat, pick the logo, the Shell logo that goes on it. And then, of course, the best one, the GLCS hat.
You know how they do fun with flags on the Big Bang Theory? We need to do fun with hats now. What's that?
So real quick, let's do a recap for everybody on what TMC actually is as a conference, because some people might not know.
Good point. It's the Technology and Maintenance Council arm of ATA.
Yeah, so a lot of that is primarily on the fleet maintenance, fleet management side of the house. So you're getting a different subset of users than you'd normally see at other conferences, where you're directors of fleet maintenance. You've got tons of mechanics that are coming to these things too. So it's a wide variety of users that you're going to see there, but all primarily from the shop side. A few IT folks will kind of drop in throughout, but mostly just an asset maintenance.
And their theme this year was advancing technology through industry engagement. This is an incredibly technical bunch of individuals. I will say that blows me away every year. I mean, they're working on rolling computers at this stage. So continue to be really impressed by the newer partners, people that you wouldn't traditionally think would attend TMC. We're starting to see people, more TMSs, more people, and even in that have just been non-asset getting into the asset space. Seems like they're really trying to understand the industry that they're selling to. So the exhibit hall, I mean, there were people at TCA talking about the exhibit hall space and who showed up in the booths and the trucks. They were still talking about it at TCA. So I thought that was interesting that there was still so much chatter about TMC with everyone that got to TCA.
What was the attendance like at TMC?
It was phenomenal. I don't have the exact numbers. I don't remember exact. I know they were close to selling out, but I'm not sure if it actually did or not.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers either. I've been at TMCs in the past, and I think it was 5 years ago, in Atlanta was a really, really good turnout. This felt like probably almost double that. You
I
know,
had heard a rumor like 5,000-6,000 people, something like that. So something in that range. It's always hard to tell because it's such a big space. So, but I heard it's big. So
oh yeah, it's huge. I got 27 miles and steps over those 3.5 days.
yeah, there you go. Well, that's good. And I mean the exhibit halls at TMCs are always amazing. So they're always amazing, and this one looked even more amazing than usual. So the 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 and really I think Susan, you hit on that when you were talking about the rolling computer. The technology platform in the truck today, as it continues to expand and as that ecosystem continues to get closer and closer, you start looking at all the measured data that we're getting and all of the requests for that data. We were just talking about this. Joe Thell and I just spoke to the Minnesota Trucking Association Safety Council last week. Actually, it seems like it was a year ago at this point. But last week, Tuesday, we spoke to the Minnesota Trucking Association on this, and just the more data that you can acquire from these trucks, and we don't even necessarily know what to do with it yet. So everyone's still figuring all this out. But the amount of data and the amount of capability that's coming out of the truck today is absolutely astounding and amazing. And it's only doubling on every couple of years. That's doubling, if not more, as they're presenting more systems into the trucks.
And I'm embarrassed to say I hadn't been in the cab of a truck in probably 20 years. And I got to do the Stone Ridge's the mirrorless truck. I got to do a ride along in that thing. I was completely blown away. And the driver chose to navigate the most hated roundabout in Nashville. So we do that. And then, equally hated are the bridesmaid buses, the woohoo buses. So we also got behind one of those, and then we parallel parked. So, but just it was almost a little unsettling as how easily he could converse with me and interact with me, because there's just so much less of a drain on him. The rearview mirrors, everything is a camera. And Nate, I know you knew this. We were talking about it. I didn't even know this existed, but it's obviously been around for a few years. But there was a gentleman from J&M Tank with me, and they've already adopted some of the technology. And he was just kind of getting an update and went with. But that was probably my favorite part, is to get on the road, even though it was only about 10 minutes. But definitely highlight of TMC for me.
So the camera or the mirrorless trucks are definitely. I haven't actually ridden in one yet. I've seen them, and I've seen how they pop up, and they definitely would take, as a driver, they would take some getting used to, because obviously your cameras are right in front of you, and you have to get used to that. But it can't be that hard. I mean, if you think about it, in your vehicles today, you have those cameras and you get used to them pretty quickly. So a backup camera in my truck, in my pickup, yeah. I can back up without it, but I certainly like it, and I rely upon it today in all aspects. So, and I have for many years. I've probably had one for 10, 15 years now, and you rely upon that. So the cameras on a truck to use in that way, and the amount of cameras that can be used on trucks to be aware of what's on your sides is far greater awareness than what any driver would ever get from visually inspecting mirrors. So that's just a much more safer device than the physical mirrors, so long as it's functional.
I feel like conceptually it's going to be a lot like the multi-monitor setup that we typically have at the office. It's all right there, all the data is presented, and it's just where am I going to go for that information?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So moving along then, other takeaways from TMC?
I'll hit mine again, and then I know Zach will chime in, but there was one session in particular, and again, same things got repeated at TCA, but there was a session on effective strategies for presenting maintenance perspectives, whatever coming out of the shop to the C-suite. And the most challenging thing to communicate and present to the C-suite, which really surprised me, but it was the need for more staffing and headcount. So, and I know we've even talked about this internally, you feel like you need it, but really, they were challenging the fleet managers, bring them the data, bring us the support for the decision. And the fleet managers, they were kind of challenging the executives to sit in on interviews. When we do need more headcount and we're doing interviews, be in the process with us, so you can see kind of what we're up against. But it's not just bringing them in, it's keeping them, because the other kind of fast fact that we heard was the number reason the technicians leave is lack of training. So before you even hire them, you've got to have that retention and that development plan. And that's a little bit, communication to the younger generation, communication style, work-life balance. That's really hard to give a shop professional, because they got to be there. They got to be with the truck. But just having that supporting data to bring them in, and then once they're there, having that culture, having the older guys, foster education for them, and then using the OEM's training materials and programs, because by and large, a lot of those are free, but kind of having that plan before they get on board. So it's not kind of a circus, trying to figure out how to keep someone. So I thought that was really valuable. And we had a couple of customers on this panel. Venture and Eagle were up there, and just was so proud to kind of hear them talk about their experience. And then, naturally they were talking about mechanics and shop technicians a lot in this, and kind of how they saw the business versus the C-suite. And then Greg Hodgkin at Grondike was also on this panel. And he said something I mentioned the other day, which was we don't talk about mechanics and shop technicians the way we talk about drivers. We're all always very vocal and cheering on our drivers. They keep America moving, but really the shop technicians are just important. They're keeping the assets moving day in and day out. They're doing their jobs quietly. And when he said that, I just, that's true. We don't do that as an industry enough. And, at GLCS, we work on these shop applications. We do a lot of upgrades and training, and we're involved in this. So I think we can play a key role in making that happen going forward as well.
I agree completely. The shop technician role, or any supporting role in the shop, actually is one that any trade role right now in the U.S. is a difficult role, and that shop technician role is a tough one to fill. So it's right there with the driver, if not more difficult in some ways. So absolutely, it's that case.
Zach, I know there were two more technical sessions. I was with you, but I could tell they were your jam. I know there was one on using data science more for fleet operations. I know, share your thoughts on those, or kind of how you thought those went.
Yeah, so a lot of it, and really the nature of all of TMC this year, kind of ties back to one of your earlier statements about it being boomers versus millennials, right? So everything is trying to move the way of AI, more technical, more, easy to access, whether it's video training or AI on how to take off this oil filter, whatever it is. And that's all I see it all more geared to the millennial group, right? So with the AI, they really created like session groups and around just the use case of it, right? And we've all talked AI here before, so we know the benefits of it, we know the dangers of it too, right? Um, so a lot they went into, you know, explaining the different types of AI, whether it's generative, whether it's the learning models, neural networks, whatever it may be. But they really brought to the group how to define where you actually need to start, right? So if your company is looking to take on AI for whatever role, for a shop training, for anything else, what AI do you need to start with, right? And then they really went into the strategies of, how do we define this AI in a standardized format? What are the data points that we're actually going to have to require, and almost create like a universal, like uh, an open um, sort of application for it, or use case, right? So for it to be used across every vendor, all OEs out there, and really creating a purpose around um, that data that they're getting in, as well as, really pushing home the fact that you need to be able to have a control set to always tie back against, right? That constant with all your, variables as you're changing and trying to hit, what may be a moving target. You've got to make sure that you keep that control set. But the AI use case, there's hundreds of different reasons for that. But that was one of the sessions. The other session was dealing with ADS, automated driving systems. So and even some AI tied into that too, right? With that, the automation of it, there are there are so many different applications. And actually it was at the what was it, Susan, the closing reception, where we had that company Traxon at the
Oh,
table
yeah.
with us.
Yeah.
And I my mind was already racing all day from like, well, we could, what if we do this or do this? And I start talking with him, and he's like, yeah, we're already doing that. It's out there. We're making it into the real world with these applications. And I mean, it's something like, not to the depths of, if like your weather map is saying that it's raining here, we're automatically going to turn on the wipers. If the wipers are on, we need to automatically turn on the headlights, as part of regulation. But even like GPS location on it, so your truck crosses into Texas, and it can reset the governor on the units
Sure.
themselves, right? Just, there's so much out there, but all of that was some of the best things that I had learned there.
Yeah.
We spoke a lot about that at the Minnesota Trucking Association stuff as well, on the ADA side or ADS side. Just the capabilities of where it's going based upon the geolocation of the truck, and then being able to reset not only governor but also driver behavior. Monitor driver behavior if you have, based on traffic, based on bridges, based on, whatever. So there's all kinds of different capabilities that you're coming down the road on. And as data, as we speed up the connections to the trucks, or the devices in the trucks, the capabilities increase exponentially.
Mhm.
So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. So I think now's a good time to take about a 1.5-minute break. And when we come back, we can transition. I'll do a little update on what I was up to. And yeah, we'll do the Kung Fu fighting from Cincinnati.
It's a transition, man. It's transitioning.
Division.
Commercial. If your fleet's downtime looks like chaos, you're missing out on GLCS. In the fast-paced world of trucking and logistics, time is everything. Meet GLCS, your expert partner in managed IT services. We integrate seamlessly with your team, bringing seasoned IT professionals with deep transportation and logistics expertise. Imagine your software updates running smoothly, complex issues resolved quickly, and operations humming with efficiency. GLCS has your back. Our support doesn't just fix problems, it prevents them. With our industry connections and proactive approach, we keep your trucks rolling and your brokers working. Think of us as the added resource your company needs to unleash its full potential. Visit glcs.net today and keep your business driving forward. GLCS, where efficiency meets expertise. What is up? We are live from Matt's.
It's just a great experience to celebrate trucking and celebrate the industry and get out and just kind of get pumped up for the busy season.
Yes.
I got a hat for everything.
Yes.
Oh, awesome. That's great.
I've got a hat for that.
All right. So I just got a few pictures. I spent 8 days in Puerto Vallarta. First
And now
time.
you talk funny.
Yeah, Puerto Vallarta. Pick up on a few Spanish words. I don't speak Spanish, but I try. So, but yeah, first time. I've taken 8 days off in a while. So a lot of long weekends over the last few years, but not too many 8-day periods. So got a few pictures. So picture from the room, picture of the beach, got the nice little Puerto Vallarta sign. Now, strangely enough, on the upper left-hand side, so everywhere we went there, we seemed to bump into people that were in trucking. So, and we're out to dinner. Actually, we took a nice little cruise. It was about an hour-long cruise. And then we're sitting next to a guy, and we start talking. A lot of Canadians in Puerto Vallarta. And a gentleman next to us were talking, and he said, "I'm from Edmonton." I said, "Well, I've been to Edmonton a bunch of times." He goes, "Well, what takes you to Edmonton?" I said, "Well, I'm in transportation, and I know West Can Bulk, RBS, Trimac, etc." And he goes, "Oh, well, I used to be involved with Landtran." And so I said, "Well, I know Landtran." He goes, "We were on TMW." I said, "Well, that, so et cetera, et cetera." So we went down the road, and he knows Ben Wiesen from CLI. They were on CLI before, and knows Bob Maddox, et cetera, et cetera. So, so we ended up having a long conversation there. So, we had a iguana named Poncho that liked to hang out by the pool. So that was got a picture of Poncho and the beautiful sunsets at Puerto Vallarta. That was actually on a boat on the way back from dinner. So, but you just can't beat the sunsets in Puerto Vallarta. They're almost as good as Hawaii. And, 80 some odd degrees, perfect weather the whole time that we were there. You really can't go wrong. So
While on the boat, did you have your swim trunks and your flippy floppies?
I did not have swim trunks. I did not intend on jumping in the water, but they did not allow shoes on the boat, so you had to take them off.
Oh.
About a 50-foot catamaran. So when you jump on the boat, you got to take your shoes off, and so you just kind of chill out. But there was a very loose shirt and shorts, so I'll call that. So
Okay, rock on.
but lots of days at the pool and a few cocktails consumed and lots of fajitas. So it was good times. So can't go wrong. Need to go back.
Well, you're going to post a picture in a week. Say, take me back.
Yeah. Might need
Perfect.
to do a GLCS company outing in Puerto Vallarta. So, all right. So let's switch the discussion to TCA. TCA was in Phoenix this year. So let's jump into that. You guys started out. I saw the first post that I saw from TCA this year was Jeremy Reamer, Mark Manera, and their workout, and I saw pretty much all y'all doing well. Turner wasn't there yet, so other side. So, but
it's pointing to him on my side. So
fair enough. So, but saw you guys doing the morning workout with Mark Manera and Jeremy Reamer. So let's
okay. So first of all, we were bamboozled.
We were lied to.
Yes. I was told it would be a quick workout, and then there was running. And I'm sorry, that's bullcrap. I was not told there would be running. I also do not speak Spanish. I don't do cardio, so I was very upset about that. But we did it, and we had a great time. And it was 14 minutes. And let me tell you, 14 minutes is a very long time, in case anybody's wondering.
Especially when you're holding a plank or trying to hold a plank in a circuit while you're waiting on your partner to come back from the running. So, you're talking 3 minutes while you're waiting to get tapped out. Yep. So,
and then we did the 10 air squat challenge that Dr. Mark and Duder have been promoting, which is super cool. I was upset though, because Duder said I couldn't do it this year because I didn't understand an air squat last year. And so I said, fine, no problem. So we did it, and then as I came out of the crowd to send a positive message to her that I can in fact do 10 air squats, apparently cut the video and never got it. So I was very, very upset about
that. Is what it is.
Love you, Duner.
But that is the way to kick off a conference. Obviously, none of us could have done it after Gin Blossoms. We couldn't have done it on Wednesday morning, at the end of the event. But definitely a great way to kick off a conference. I'm going to expect it at every single one now, and made some lifelong friends. It was so great. Had some of them on the podcast. We would have went. Go ahead.
Yeah, we would have went to the one we would have went to ATAMC, but it was like 40 degrees outside that day, and you were waiting for me to just say it's too cold, Susan. So you tapped out a second at that. So otherwise we would have went to that one too. But
it's great.
And Turner and I both did something that we've never done before.
Uh-oh.
Turner, I'll let you start.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. So
the Waymo.
You go.
What? The Waymo.
Oh yeah, I was going to talk about that. I was going to talk about that when we got into the whole TCA recap.
Well, we're here.
Yeah, we're here. So,
tell us now. Tell us why you're in a hotel room.
So last year when I was in Phoenix, what was it for TIA, I believe. I saw these Waymos downtown, and I just freaked me out. I was looking, I was like, man, what are these things? And then my buddy was like, hey, they're Waymos, they're driverless kind of robo taxis. So I was like, okay, when I go to Phoenix next year for TCA, I've got to do this thing. I got to do it, right? So when I'm on the plane coming in, I'm getting the app all straight. I'm setting up. So I'm kind of pumped and nervous at the same time. So I get off the plane, and I'm seeing them everywhere, picking people up. And I'm like, okay, order my Waymo, tell it where I'm going. It's really simple. So then it's like 10 of them that are just coming to pick people up at the airport. So it's really crazy, because the only way you know that it's your Waymo, well, it tells you the tag number, but they have like a little thing that spins on the top, and when it stops and is ready for you, it'll say, hey, I've arrived. It'll put your initials at the top. So then you go, okay, that's my car. And then you just put in your code, unlocks the door, pop the trunk, put in your stuff, and then you're off, and I filmed the whole thing. It's it's really cool. It's really futuristic, just to say the least. It's really futuristic. Point that it you have to kind of think for a second. We're in the Jetsons. I never thought I would see this, but it's here, and it's and on the return trip, which I was supposed to go back home to Baltimore yesterday. I didn't factor in the spring break and the amount of time it was going to take to get to the airport. So I got a Waymo back, and because of the traffic, a bunch of Waymos thought that it would be quicker to take a detour, and they made a U-turn, and then it was like 4 Waymos making a U-turn, and by the time they got me there, and it tried to navigate to drop me off, by the sidewalk, and cars were almost running into it, and they weren't yielding, but the Waymo, it was making the right turns, it was speeding up, getting into traffic. I mean, it was doing its thing, but it's just a phenomenal technology. And now that, I ended up missing my flight, so I decided, hey, I'm already in the West Coast. I'll just go out to Vegas for a day. So I'm working from Vegas today, and I'll fly back tomorrow or tonight. Tonight I'll catch the red eye. But it was definitely an experience taking that Waymo with the technology with those things. And I get out here, and now they're telling me that Vegas is testing them out right now, piloting them with physical drivers in there. So they have to run for so many trips before they get authorization to pull the driver out and have them run. So I was talking to the cab driver going to the hotel, and he's saying, yep, they'll be here probably next year, and it's going to change the whole dynamic of Las Vegas.
Well, we shall see.
So I took one against my better judgment on the way to the airport with James Courier, and it was wild because we're both FaceTiming people from this thing while it's driving us. And Turner's not joking. Like I videoed some of this too. Like when you get into congested areas, like the way it makes decisions is actually like it's very safe. Like the more and more cars that got around us, I felt better about it because it was not nothing herky jerky. It was very smooth. So we kind of had back to your comment earlier, Zach, about the neural networks. You saw half a dozen other Waymos, within your vision, while you're pulling up. I'm like, all these vehicles are pulling all these data points at the same time, and they're synthesizing all this to make these decisions based on all the humans that are also in there. And they get better and better every single time at predicting some behavior and looking at what the odds are as the vehicles come in and out of the traffic patterns. So I think that was just one of those very, very unique things about Phoenix, because they've been a test market for this for so long, that it made the experience even more memorable.
I think we ought to get somebody on from Waymo, because everybody keeps posting stuff about Waymo. So we ought to just find somebody from Waymo and get them on the podcast. So.
There you go.
All right. So back to TCA. All right. So let's jump into the rest of the conference. So Susan, you're kind of calling, or whoever wants to take the ball. So go ahead and run with it.
Let's talk about, I know Bain and Turner have a lot to say about this one, and it's both the most dreaded and look forward to session every conference. Bob Costello, the economic outlook. You guys were both in that one, right?
Turner was.
Turner.
Yes. Yeah, I was at that one. I always like to see, even when I was on the truckload carrier sales side of the house, I love to go to conferences here from Bob Costello, because it kind of sets the stage for when you do your customer visits. And same thing here, working in technology sales, carriers, the C-suite that didn't, necessarily go to these conferences, they want to know what's going on, or what do you think, or, and the information that Bob Costello passes along is information that you pass along when you're doing your calls to different organizations. But the one thing, just to kind of give you the quick highlights of Bob, what he talked about. So he mentioned there's some positive or potential positives with the new administration. He said it's tax cuts are up for renewal in 2025. That was one of the things. No taxes on overtime, tips, and Social Security income not being taxed. So he says that's some of the positive things that are with the new administration, the economic outlook. Negative things, he said, the deportations and less immigration is unfortunately going to lead to potentially a tighter labor market. And you know, people don't really think about that necessarily, but you know, that we need people to, you know, do the things that some of these people that are being deported are doing right now. And also the tariffs. The tariffs are going to impact the trucking market, obviously, with the trade wars. You know, I always like to say every action has a reaction, right? So if we tax or slap tariffs on, you know, Canada, Mexico, different countries, they're going to reciprocate and obviously slap tariffs on our goods. So it's going to have a reciprocal type of effect. Also, he said that there's the ocean vessel port fees that they're going to be imposed on China of $1 to $3 million per stop at a port, which is significant. And that, as a result, is going to lead to a change in the freight patterns because there's going to be less. They're going to be making less port stops just based on the amount of money they're going to have to pay. So he said the worst case scenario, which nobody really knows, is that could come from all these changes and all these tariffs and things of that. We could possibly face a freight recession. That could be the ultimate result of this. However, if you take the tariffs out of things, he predicts that freight will improve, but he just can't predict it with all the different movements that are happening right now and uncertainty. But it was a good conversation. It was interesting because there were a lot of Canadian carriers in the session, and it was kind of a back and forth. You know, some of the Canadians that were on some of the panels and moderating things, they were having a little fun with the tariffs that are being imposed and what's happening, and you know, the fentanyl and all the stuff. They were having some fun with it, so it was good. It was good. It was a good discussion that Bob had with the economic outlook, and it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next month, because I think there's some tariff increases supposed to come on in late April that definitely will affect the trucking market if they do take place. So
April 2nd on some of them.
Yeah. So that's kind of the quick bullet points. If you want to add anything, Bain.
I think that leads into a lot of the conversation that was going on during the operations discussion that you and I attended, Turner. Obviously, with all these things and the economic uncertainty, how do you reduce cost per mile? How do you maximize yield and revenue on the trucks? And they talked a little bit about utilizing telematics. I won't go into all the details because, to be frank, a lot of the stuff wasn't really revelation knowledge. Monitoring idle time, speed monitoring and coaching, out of route miles or optimal routes, because they did kind of really go down the rabbit hole of, hey, there are certain routes like in Central Virginia that you want to take versus going 219, which is almost always seen as the shortest route, but it's a motorcycle route. So it's very dangerous, not optimal for commercial vehicles. So I talked about that a bit, but then they got back into the return to office conversation, which then goes into what Susan was talking about, this kind of old school versus new school thinking that is going on. And very much hey, we want people in the office. We want to see people in the seats. And you had some younger people kind of calling out like, well, what are you hiring? Are you hiring adults? Are you hiring kids? Or can your people just not manage? And so it didn't get quite as testy as some of the sessions Susan got in, but it got a little testy, which I liked, because you have people that are making their voices heard, and they're making sure that they are advocating for themselves. And you have the business saying, yes, we understand that, and we want to make sure that we can support you, but also we have a business to run, and we want to make sure that we all feel comfortable with that. And so I think that was probably the highlight I took from that conversation was, yes, we're trying to, maximize the business, but really, like, there's a big cultural piece in the industry that is brewing that is going to need to be addressed at a much larger level than it is just yet.
Yeah, and all these companies are and I applaud them. They're working. They're talking about how to establish and develop a good company culture. Where people want to work for and with that company, whether it's remote, hybrid, or in office. Kinds of things to invest in to train them. It costs less to invest and teach and have that older generation invest in the younger, but it does take a lot more time. And it got me thinking, everybody was talking about, what are we learning here? What are we going to take back? We talked about it on the podcast. I think we asked everybody that came on the podcast, big takeaways, aha moments, things like that. But it got me thinking, about what Nate's doing with freight movement with our sister org. And it's not just about being, plugged in at your company, but it's to your industry. And freight movement is able to meet people at the local level, people that can't run around like us, people that can't leave the shop or leave IT or leave operations to go to a major conference and spend time in the educational sessions. But maybe because there are so many of them and we're getting more and more, so many freight movement events, as an example, that they could get to one of those and spend time with their peers, because I think it adds to retention when that employer, that team member is also feels like they're part of an industry. They're part of something bigger. So again, I always kind of like when I see similarities to what we're doing, kind of at the forefront to attract and keep people in this industry. So I talked to several people about freight movement, and some of the people that were going to MATS that didn't know about the freight movement event, or if they couldn't go there, kind of where's the next one? So Nate, I have a lot more to talk to you about on that front very soon.
Sure.
But yeah, people that can't get, especially to these annual conferences, because they pack in, so much into 4 or 5 days. It's really hard to take more than, 3 or 4 people from your company.
No, I think that's extremely important. It's something that we see everywhere. You're only able to bring 1, 2, 3 people. Some larger organizations bring a lot more people, but 1, 2, or 3 people to any of these conferences, summits, whatever it might be. And the local events, I think, are so important. So important. And the networking on the local scale is so important. Getting together with people that are really smart in your area. Everyone at any organization, you have dozens of years, decades of experience throughout your regional teams, your regional companies, and getting them together to talk and understand best practices there's so much value there. So that's and we're missing out as an industry on what's capable. So other takeaways from TCA. So we've talked about the economy. We've talked about, our millennials and our boomers, which thank goodness you didn't talk about my generation. So
there's general optimism around the space right now. I think with all the interviews that we did, the podcast, people that we talked to, our friends that we saw, new friends we made, partners, there is cautious optimism right now, which is exciting. Even with all the kind of craziness going on in the world, I think that's a big positive. I will say, and this is a big shout out to the TCA, their Elevate Young Leaders program. I was incredibly impressed with the people they brought through, which also gives me a lot of optimism for the near and the long-term future of the space. So we interviewed a few of those folks. They were fantastic, but I think overall the sentiment is that we are trending slowly to the right and up.
I got to give a shout out to Bain here, because, you're not that much older than some of those young ones that were coming in and on the podcast, their first time on one. You made it so easy for them to do that. And I know they were all just crowing afterwards, you know,
that one kid was physically shaking.
Yes. And they want to do more, but I saw you after and you kept talking to them. You are already investing. You've already made plans to follow up with a couple of them. So that was just kind of an example of what we heard in the session in action. You were so gracious with your time before getting them set up. I mean, I saw grown men much older that had never done it, and you were calming them down and guiding them through it. So you did a wonderful job of putting people at ease. But then, you know, it wasn't one and done. You offered and extended yourself as a resource when they get back home.
But Susan, the reason why they were shaking was because of the guns. They were intimidated. They were intimidated for the guns. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Everyone's intimidated there. So, you know, circling back on the younger generation coming in, this is a great industry, and I think there's been a few podcasts that we've done recently where we've talked about the younger generation coming into this industry and how and why they're entering the industry, or if at all. And this industry really breeds character, breeds a good character when it really comes down to it. And you look at what we do in all aspects of the industry, whether you're moving freight or you're supplying technology to support the industry, you're a driver, you're a broker, whatever the case may be. It's a very very demanding industry that supplies a lot of reward as well. So when you really jump into it and dive into this industry wholeheartedly, you either fall in love with it or you're not into it very long. And so once that new generation kind of gets the taste, they're either going to be in it or they're not. And we just have to learn how to flex a little bit with them. So that's I think but exactly, that's where I was going. So it is truly that it is understanding the transition of generation, and where technology continues to double every 2 years, so does the way we consume it, use it, and be with it every day. And this particular generation has grown up with it from the day they were born. So they're expecting us to use it that way. And you know, we're in a lot of cases we're not. So it's a little bit different. So small carriers, you guys talked a little bit about small carriers facing unique challenges. There was a panel or something along that lines. I wanted to touch on that as our last point, and then we'll kind of wrap up.
Yeah, I think Turner.
I can talk a little bit about that. So, I think what the small carriers, what they were talking about, some of the leadership in the small carriers were talking about how, because I think one of the questions that somebody asked, or the moderator asked, was how do they compete with the larger carriers? How do they compete in the market by getting the same freight when they only have X amount of trucks and they're competing with bigger carriers? And I think one of the most important things, and I had that challenge when I was running a fleet, a small fleet. You can't, the fact of the matter is you cannot compete with the big mega carriers. It's economies of scale, right? They can offer a company 20 to 30 trucks a day, whereas if you only have a few trucks, you might as well not try to compete with the mega carriers. And that's what they basically said was, we stop trying to compete with those carriers. We have to find a niche in our local market, a smaller shipper that I can build a relationship with, and I can do a lot for that small shipper where they gain my trust, where I can grow with that small carrier or the small shipper and get business that way. So basically what they said was we don't try to compete with the large carriers and the companies, the small trucking companies that try to compete with the mega carriers, they run themselves right out of business because they cannot, their network isn't vast enough. So when the RFPs come out and they look at the particular lanes, they can only target certain amount of lanes because they don't have a certain amount of trucks. And that's the reality of it. So why target a big shipper? Because you cannot do what that big shipper wants. The big shipper wants you to service multiple markets. They need to focus on small shippers that need them to do a niche piece of business and be very good on that and grow your business that way. And I think that was one of the key points that one of the owners of one of the small trucking companies said. They had mentioned that when they first started out, they were trying to compete with the big carriers and go into shippers and tell them that they want a chance, but they really couldn't service them because they just didn't have the network set up to do that. So that was a valuable lesson for some of the carriers that were on the panel that were just getting started, or in the room that were just getting started in the business, to say, okay, stop doing that. Stop trying to get in with that big shipper because that you cannot service that big shipper. Focus on your regional, like you said, Susan. Go to your local traffic clubs, your local regional transportation associations to meet those shippers, CSCMP. Go to those local organizations and go to those roundtables and meet a small shipper in that market and tell them what you can do, how you can service them, and do it that way and grow your business that way. Because that was the most valuable point that I remember from that session, Nate.
No, that's great. Great points. I think, being dynamic and creating your own path, I think, is important, regardless of what path that might be. But yes, if you're going to try to create competition with a well-established organization when you're not well-established, that's usually a choice that you need to rethink. So that doesn't matter if you're a trucking company or any business. If you suddenly decide you're going to go take on a well-established business and you're not well-established, you're probably making a poor choice. So that I think that goes with anyone. So
pick and choose when you punch above your weight class.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, I think that kind of wraps up this hour. So I appreciate everybody. You guys want to tell everybody where they can reach you at?
Sure. I'll go. smayo@glcs.net.
Zach?
Yep, you can find me at zbarnhouse@glcs.net as well.
Mr. Bain?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Robert Bain, Strongest Man of Logistics, rbain@glcs.net. Or if you are anywhere within the Cincinnati area this weekend, come up to the Butler County Fairgrounds. You'll see me out there pulling the elbow sleeves on for the last time. So I'll see you out there.
Mr. Turner?
I can be reached at mturner@glcs.net.
All right. Appreciate you guys coming on today. And we'll drop you guys off and catch up with you here in just a minute. So while the industry is certainly about moving freight, it's also about moving people forward. It's about taking what we learn, the experiences we share, and using them to empower others. Because the future of transportation won't be built by one person, one company, or one solution. It'll be built by the leaders who invest in those around them. We face challenges, fraud, capacity constraints, and evolving technology. But leadership isn't about avoiding obstacles. It's about equipping others to navigate them. It's about pulling people up, giving them the tools, the knowledge, and the confidence to take on what's next. So take what you've learned, apply it, share it, and bring others with you. Because when we lift others up, we drive this industry forward together. So, as always, stay curious, stay informed, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Until next time, drive forward with purpose and innovation. Thanks for watching.